Hey, what's up YouTube? Shooting people, reloading people, and tactical bitches everywhere. When you're doing high volume reloading, sometimes you wind up sacrificing some quality control. And that becomes a huge issue. So one thing you have to do is, for instance, check every one of your rounds. There's a few issues. Let's rotate the camera around here. When you work this Dylan, you have to make sure, for instance, that you bring the ram all the way up and down. Sometimes you'll short stroke it, and you won't get a good. Your case won't be sized right. Sometimes you won't push it all the way forward. Your primer won't be all set seated. And what you'll wind up with is a bunch of rounds, sometimes within your reloads that are wrong. They're not quite up to spec. So there's a few things. One, if they have high primers, you might get light primer strikes. The other issue is they might not chamber correctly. So you want to do some quality control. The number one quality control level starts, or the first quality control level starts really at your reloader. Make sure while you're doing this that you are really actuating the ram all the way up and all the way down. Okay, all the way. Okay, fully. You want the station 1 back here. I know you can't see it, but we've done other videos. This is a depriming and resizing die. You want at that station for that case to go in as far as possible. The next station here is where you're going to bell and fill the case with powder. You have to, for high quality reloading, because you want to avoid a squib, visually inspect each round to make sure that powder dropped into it and that you didn't double charge it. Okay. Then you run it through sort of basic. You'll get a hopper full of reloads. Now it's time to do something else. I generally don't do this for practice rounds, and honestly I've not done it for match rounds up to this point either. However, I have gotten burned. A couple of years ago I got burned. Well, I didn't get burned. I burned myself by not doing this at the New England Regional IDPA Championship by basically having a round that didn't chamber. That failure to chamber, I had to eject the round, and it was a disappearing target. I lost the target. So that really sucks. That costs you some serious. It usually costs you time and points, and after all, points are time. Because you have to clear it, so there's time, and of course the points are the fact that you didn't get the points. So what I've done here, and the other thing is sort of component quality. One issue I have is this, I'm using range pickup brass, so no matter how careful you are at the press, you should visually inspect and clean all your rounds, make sure they're not, rotted out or something really bad, they're not badly crushed, the rim's not damaged. You're picking them up off the ground usually. It's hard to tell what happened when they hit the ground. If somebody stepped on them, they might be somebody else's, right? So you need to visually inspect them, after you tumble them and clean them, make sure they're okay, make sure the rims are not chewed up, and there's no cracks, things like that, the case mouth. But there's also an issue of making sure that they will seat properly. A lot of the resizing dies don't go all the way down to the bottom. There's a gap at the bottom, and sometimes the cases are distorted for whatever reason. So you need to make sure that that's not going to be an issue for you. How do you do that? The easiest way to do it is to get a case gauge. So for ammunition that's I'm not saying reload for self-defense, but for competition purposes, if you reload, spend the whatever it costs to get one of these. I don't know how much they are, but they're certainly under $20. It's a case gauge, and all this thing does is simulates essentially the chamber of your pistol. They come in all different calibers. This one happens to be 45 ACP. So what you do is you take them and you drop them in here. Now I know my overall length is fine, but if you put on a flat surface and your overall length was too long, it'd pop up like that. So you know your overall length is not good. Okay, but they should sit. So I know mine are fine because I've had my reloader set up for a long time. They should sit flush in here. I know you're getting a glare. Or actually they're slightly below flush. So you can grab the edge here with your fingernail. Okay, I think you can see that there, right? All right, I can tell actually this round has a primer that looks a little bit higher than I'd like. But what they should do is you should be able to just drop them in. They should go all the way into flush, feel it with your finger, and you should be able to just as easily drop them out. Okay, this is I reloaded 200 rounds this morning, and I'm setting them aside. So these have premium primers. I've checked the weight of each charge. I checked the weight when I started of the powder, and I checked it after 100 rounds, and then I checked it at the end, so it was stable throughout. And when I went through and checked all these, I found defects, so I can eliminate them. Let's go through some of them. This is a common one here. Or not, this one's actually not so common, excuse me. Here's a case where this thing won't go in. Now I know that the bells, it's been crimped right because it goes in, right, to the chamber gauge. But look how much it starts, that sticks out. This round actually will jam up your gun really good if you had this in your magazine, right? The reason this probably happened is I most likely short stroked the ram on the reloader. Okay, that's a reject. This really can't be used. So you take it, get something like this, a container, put your rejects in it so they don't get mixed up. All right. And what you can do is pull those bullets and start again if you want, or you could just take them somewhere and dispose of them as duds. Here's another one. Now look at this one. Here we have a situation where it's not flush. It just didn't. It should just drop in. You shouldn't have to push it in. Okay. So if I drop that in, it's actually not flush. Right. I can actually see it at the top. If I push that sucker in there when I turn it around or upside down, it won't come out. All right. This case is somehow deformed, most likely at the rim. Right. If I look at it closely, we can look at this together closely. This, it seems to be okay. There's a little bit of a burr right here, I think you can see. Let's get that sucker in focus. See that burr right there? So this just got chewed up. You can actually feel it with your finger. It hangs up right there. That just got chewed up. What you can do, so this you can use for practice. You don't have to scrap this round. If you stick it into this end like this and just turn it, you'll actually get that burr out of there. Okay, and then it should drop in just fine. Okay, so it's just a burr. But again, now I don't trust it, so I just put it aside, right? And that, you can bring that to the range. When you take your kids out to shoot or something like that, you can use that as long as it's not for competition purposes. So here's another one. Does the same thing. Burr on the rim of the cartridge. Same here. So those are real common because it's pickup brass, right? Stuff happens, so I'm getting a lot of those, right? So you can keep going through here and just keep, you can see, another burr on the case rim. And those you really want to make sure you've eliminated. So these are not going to go in a round box that you're going to bring to the competition, right? Here's one that's pretty severe example of a bad rim of the cartridge, and you can just go ahead and, if you want, just put it in the end, give it a few turns, and you should, because brass is a soft material, this is not going to deform your case gauge. And you can see this one is actually bad enough that even doing that was not sufficient. We call that a reject. Okay, put it in the reject box, don't mess around with it. This guy dropped in, but he's not completely flat. So this is real subtle, right? So here's, it looks flat, right? So you can drop in there. When I turn him, let's see, he kind of hesitates falling out. That help? fall out without too much effort, but still, that's a problem. Here's one. It's typical. That's pretty typical. That right there. That's out of spec. You want to avoid that. Here's another one. I know I had two of these, so a short stroke, two of them, and just so you could either pull these and throw out the brass, or you can take them and shoot them. If you're going to just do some accuracy practice or something like that, but you set them aside. All right, those are some issues. The other issue now is to go through and inspect every one of my primers to see if it's seated. And actually, I don't just inspect them. What I'll actually do now is I just did a video on this, so you'll see it. I'll actually take a primer seating tool and make sure they're all uniformly seated by just taking every single one of these rounds. Yeah, it's tedious and obnoxious, but I get every one of my rounds is seated properly. At that point, you can take your round, and you know it's where you want it to be, and you can go ahead and put it in the box for competition. Label these with a different labeling system, so you know that those are quality control bullets that are suitable in a match. All right, that's all I got for you.